Hey everybody, Creative Collector here. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to do a little time travel. I'm going to take you all the way back to 1986. 1986. Man, some of you guys weren't even born yet. Some of you probably before me. But I could tell you, I was this 14-year-old kid walking into a local comic book store, and I had no idea my world was about to be turned upside down. So at the time I was big into X-Men comics and Superman and Batman, a few DC characters, until the guy behind the counter says, "Hey bud, check this out." This was the first time I had ever heard of the Punisher. I never knew that he was released in 1974 until I saw this character on this cover, and I was just totally blown away. This is the exact same comic that I bought that day in 1986 with the Mike Zeck cover. It's even signed by him, and it's graded by CGC. Now it's only a 9.0, but again, this is the very first comic that I bought. So here we are almost 40 years later, and I still have this book, and it is by far one of the most iconic covers to ever grace a comic book. So ever since I've been into collecting and into 3D printing, I have always wanted some sort of statue rendered right after this cover. And today, I finally got my wish. Okay guys, let's go over the pieces first that come off the printer. That way you kind of get a glimpse of how many pieces are on this model. So I scaled this up to about a 1/5 scale, which is going to be astronomically huge for this whole diorama. If you could tell by like the palm of my hand how big this thing is. I'm unsure how tall it is going to be until I actually have the wall together, which comes in 4 pieces. And you can see here that it goes together pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding down some of the pieces that need to be sanded down. And we're going to get this thing dry fitted together and take a look at it before we go into paint. How about that? So what I'm doing now is I am prepping the surface on a lot of the pieces, and I'm going in and getting some of these where the support connections are and getting those sanded down with my G-tool here, because it doesn't dig into the detailed part of the surface. It gets those things down really good so you don't notice them during primer and paint. If you're interested in one of these tools, I do have a link in my description on Amazon that you can purchase one off there. They work wonders for polishing surfaces and getting all these divots and pits out of your model, such as this one right here. So one issue I ran across was I saw that this hand with the gun did not fit on the arm correctly. So I'm actually going to have to sand that down internally in order to get it to fit. So nothing a Dremel can't handle. And don't forget, before you do any sanding and any painting, always put your respirator on. All right, looks like a good fit. So one of the things about this model is the floor and the wall were so big, scaling them to 1/5 scale, that I had to split these up in Mesh Mixer. And now that I've printed them and they're split, we're getting ready to join those back together, and you will see how the seam line goes together almost flawlessly. If you want to learn how to do that, I did a separate video on seam lines and gaps. Watch that video and it'll show you how to get the almost perfect seam here with little to no filler. So here we go. So now that I've got all my pieces sanded down to where I'm satisfied with them, it's time to start primer. So now I'm ready for paint. I'm going to go ahead and lay down the basic skin tones on the face and parts of the body where the skin is. And I'm going to do that with my own mix of skin tone. This is just a base that I use from mixing the 4 colors, which is white, yellow, red, and blue all together. Check out my video on mixing skin tones. That is what I use every day for myself. So for the sake of time on the video, I just went ahead and airbrushed the skin tone, the base skin tone, onto the head and the torso and the legs. So I went ahead and I actually added the yellow and the red wash to the arm right here, just to show you the difference in once that is cut in to the basic skin tone, there is a little bit more of a pinkish tone to it. And what that does is it just kind of bites into the skin tone a little bit, just to make it a little bit more, look a little bit more real and not so flat. Alright everybody, so here I have the head after I have done the 2 washes on there. I did not do the blue wash. Now I'm going to go in with a pinkish red and do some of the shading on the face and on the body. Okay, so now that my shading is done, what I'll go back and do is I'll go back and hit some of the highlights with a little bit of a lighter shade of the skin tone. What this does is it helps bring out all of that pinkish red that's in there, all of the shading, and will actually accent a lot of the facial features. So then what I'll do is I'll take and lower my PSI on my compressor a little bit, and I'll actually do a little spritzing up in the face to kind of give it a little bit of a freckling effect, and that gives it a little bit more contrast and a little bit more depth. I'm getting ready to put the 5 o'clock shadow on, and I'm going to be using this acrylic ink right here. It's an oxide black. This stuff works really good. It's got its own dropper, and you don't need to thin it or anything like that. Just put it in the airbrush and go with it, but it is made for all kinds of uses. I've been doing this. I did the Null base coat in this right here, and it goes on very, very smooth and very, very silky, and let's do this. So this is the sealer that I use for my models. It is a flat Color Max Clear. As long as you shake it up really good, when you get it, it will go on really good and it will make your colors very vibrant. And also this is a flat. They do make a matte and a gloss finish, but I use flat for all of my models, and you'll see why here in a minute. All right, everybody, here is the head complete. I did not do the filming of the head because I had to wear my optics in order to see everything that I was doing. But basically, it's just a matter of going in like I've done on all my videos. I put the eyes down, the black for the eyes, and then the white over the top of it, and then I add the irises. And then for the mouth, I just mixed up like a red pinkish color for the tongue and the gums, and I put the teeth on. I did put like a little thin line on the teeth with my ink. And then I went and did a little bit more highlights and stuff on the wrinkles, so that come out real nice. And then I painted the hair with the black oxide paint or the ink, and then I dry brushed it with a darker blue and to get that comic highlight. So this is a comic piece, it's not a realistic piece. The eyes are a little bit kind of buggy, but that is the way it's sculpted in there. And I did fit it onto the torso and it looks real good. So we're going to move on to the rest of the model. So for the back wall, all I did was I primered it black, and then I just went over with a dark red, like a brick red, and I did this. This is actually just 2 coats, and the reason you got this gradation in there is because I did not paint it solid. I just went in and just randomly kind of swept side to side and then just focused in on a couple of areas, and that's how I paint brickwork. It works better that way. And what I'll do is I'll go in and I will actually put the fine line, the mortar part in there, and then I'll go in and I'll start highly detailing like individual bricks to kind of make them look a little bit different from each other, because brickwork is not all the same. And then one thing I did notice on the model, I got this weird line like right in the top of here, like I'm sure you could see that, and I didn't notice that until I started to work on it. And then I got this other one on the bottom there, and I'm going to go back and look at the file. I'm not sure if that's part of the sculpt or not. I doubt it, but I didn't get that on the front. I just did on the back, and that's very odd. I've never had that before. But once I get all done with that, then I'll go back through and do some airbrushing for the bullet holes, and then I'll do some dry brushing here on the Punisher logo and the skull up here on the top. And then that will be it for this piece. So the bottom piece here, right now I just have it primered. I will go in and do I'm just going to try something here different. I'm actually just going to go in and put a wash over the primer, and then doing some dry brushing to bring out some of the features in the cracks and crevices. And we're going to see if that works pretty good. 2 big gigantic trash cans. These are relatively simple. I painted them with a metallic gray, and I will just go in and do some airbrushing around the center areas right in here to bring out some highlights and some depth. And then I'll go in with Say Hi to Ghost Rider, and then I'll go in and do some dry brushing with some silver metallic and dirty these things up pretty good and make them just look like trash cans. And these pieces here, which are the boots and the hands, I'll actually go in and just paint those white and airbrush those white, and then I will go back in and hand brush the guns black, and then do some weathering on both. Alright, so I just completed the white on the belt and the skull and shaded everything, and I've got all the boots and the handguns up here all finished too. Sorry, I forgot my microphone. And I'm getting ready to start on the blue-black part of the body. So now that I have the blue on the torso and on the legs, I'll actually go in and do some black shading to bring out that color, and I'll add the blood and stuff onto the wounds, and we were just about be ready for putting everything together. And then I'll have to go in and paint the guns, but the gloves are all shaded, they're weathered. I think they look really good. The boots are the same way. They're painted, they're weathered, everything is getting ready to go together very nicely. The head is looking awesome, and so let's go do some shading. So now we have both pieces here completely shaded, and all I got to do is add a few details and put this thing together, and we are almost done with the figure. Now that we got all of our pieces painted, it is time to start putting our character together. Again, for the assembly, I am going to use a 5-minute 2-part resin epoxy. It does work good, it holds real good, and it's a lot better than super glue. So here it is, everyone, for a side-by-side comparison. Now, it isn't perfect, but I tell you, I'm very happy with it. It's a good representation of Mike Zeck's artwork. And a couple of things that I did not go over the process with because I wanted to keep the video to a respectable level is, for example, the base, and all I did was on this, I primered it. I did not paint it. I put a wash over the primer and it achieved that marbling looking effect. And then I just hit certain areas with the airbrush and it turned out really good. The trash cans, I just painted those a gray metallic, and I used airbrush to do some shading on those, and did some weathering, did some silver accents on it, and it turned out really well for that. The shading on the suit, man, I could not be happier with it. A lot of those highlights turned out really, really well. Those light blues, kind of like what the comic looks like a little bit. Some of that's all accented and stuff. Probably can't tell from the comic too much. I mean, it is an older comic, but yeah, I'm very happy with it. This is definitely going to be a intricate part of my collection. Definitely a piece that I'm going to center it in my collection. I did make it the size enough to fit in a Detolf, and I think this is where it's going to go. But I may display it alongside the book. What do you guys think? So there you have it, everybody. Almost 40 years in the making, and finally I have a piece that's definitely going to be a huge integral part of my collection. The only thing that I wish I could do is actually, I got Mike Zeck to sign this several years ago. It'd be really awesome to get him to sign the statue here. So Mr. Zeck, if you're watching, hook a boy up. Well, I hope you enjoyed the build. I know I did. Again, this means a lot to me to be able to get a file like this and to be able to 3D print this and share this with you. I do thank you very much for watching the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We're growing as fast as we can. Don't forget, we also have the road to 1,000. Once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm actually going to give a few pieces away. Also, I have started my own Patreon account, simply because it takes a lot to do these sort of videos, especially the build videos. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of money to do this sort of thing, and anything that you guys give would help create more videos and help ease the cost a little bit. So I appreciate you tuning in, and until next time, see ya!